podcasters.
Yay! Someone should have picture that, yeah.
Liv, oh my God.
Hello.
Welcome to the Mujeres Create podcast. I am so happy to have you on my podcast.
I'm so glad to be here.
I met you in 2019 at Ad Color, which was my first Ad Color conference.
Well, that was your first?
That was my first. And I came out of that forever a changed woman. So empowered. And I left Google after that. It was really like a very empowering moment for me. So I remember meeting you through my friend Verna.
Yes,
and I'm
shout
just
out
like,
to Verna.
she's so gorgeous. She's so like stylish. She's so colorful. I loved your style. And I've been admiring you on social media since.
Can you follow me everywhere I go and remind me, especially when I'm getting up in the morning to take my kids, because I am not stylish. I'm in my pajamas and blessed that no one has to see that.
Every time I see you, you like stand out because you're always colorful.
Yes,
beautiful
I love color.
Hair, beautiful makeup.
You're so good to me.
I saw you at Denise's barbecue recently, and I'm like, oh my God, Liv! I love your podcast. Oh my God.
Thank you. It always means a lot to hear that, because you never know if the content is really resonating, if it's authentic. I want it to be.
I love it.
So it's good to hear it always.
Yes.
I was surprised. So I was like, yay, tell me.
I love it because I'm a fan of podcasts. And when I created Mujeres Create, I realized how hard it is to do this.
Yes.
And to get people to listen. And to get people to, I don't know, just like follow you on the journey. So I definitely appreciated that from you, and like to see how much you've been able to grow your podcast over the last 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
And so I'm a fan.
Thank you.
But before we get into Lived Stories, your podcast, that was the original plan, to talk about that.
Yeah.
But then as we started to prep for this conversation, there were so many other things that came up, and I'm like, oh my God, do we need more than an hour?
We might need, this might need to be a 2-parter, but we'll see.
2-parter.
We'll see. Yeah.
So first, what I want to do through Mujeres Create is just create a platform for women like you to tell their stories.
Okay.
To share their stories of creation, which often happens when something bad happens, or as you're recovering from that,
that's true,
situationship. And so I want women to know that at their lowest point, there's always an opportunity to reemerge and to create and to get more out of life, which is exactly what you're doing. And also another thing that I want to accomplish through this podcast is to build community with Black women and Latina women.
Yes.
As
we
I
go together.
And what I found is that we're often going through the same things in the health journeys, in relationships, in the workplace. For me, when I worked at Google, this is where I found my Black community, Verna and so many other amazing Black women. And I keep that with me, and I really want to make sure that Latinas and Black women were working together, because together we're more powerful,
100%.
and we can create even more. So that's one of the things that I want to accomplish with this podcast. But
you're gonna do it. We're
gonna do it.
But that's why I'm here. I believe in this. I believe in your story. I believe in you. You have such a great energy. I guess we're loving on each other before we get into the episode, but your energy is always infectious. You're so caring. You have this unique ability to kind of bring down people's guards and be able to probably vomit TMI things.
It.
So, this is, I'm proud of you for starting something and putting something that didn't exist into the world. It takes courage and takes bravery.
Same.
So
you
kudos
too.
to you.
Thank you.
Yay.
So Liv, you are an amazing marketer, an amazing mother, an entrepreneur, a creator. You're so many things. For those people that don't know you yet, who is Liv? I love the name, actually, and I love the name of the platform. I love a good play on name. So you nailed it.
As a true marketer,
you
my goodness,
nailed
the name
it.
is everything. My name is Olivia, so I'm introducing y'all to Olivia, and I just felt Olivia was a little too formal. So actually, when I first got started in my career, I worked at Calvin Klein, and my boss at the time had a daughter whose name was Olivia, and she called her Liv. Well, so naturally, she called me Liv, and it stuck. And so no one actually knows me by Olivia.
I just heard this morning that your name is Olivia.
My name is Olivia.
Which is even cooler, too.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. But I feel more akin to Liv. It's more vibrant, which matches my energy, my personality. And so, so welcome to Olivia or Liv. And I will say first and foremost, I'm a child of God. And I think that's my North Star in understanding my identity. I was born in America, and my parents actually were going through a divorce. And to be able to get stable for my mom to finish school, she sent me to live with my grandparents in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And so that was probably around maybe 18 months. So from 18 months to 9 years, I grew up. I went to school in Africa. My grandparents raised me. My aunts and uncles raised me until I was about 9 years old. So I think that's fourth grade. I remember coming to America, elementary school, fourth grade, and having to relearn American culture, because in Sierra Leone, you learn British culture. And I struggled. I struggled with pronunciations. I still sometimes spell things the British way, not the American way. I still say British words that's not Americanized. And so that's my upbringing. What I didn't realize is in those span years, there were things that I caught, not having language to process it just then, but there was a sense of abandonment. There was a sense of, well, who am I? I didn't quite fit Africa, so I wasn't African. And the kids at school let me know that, oh, you're American. And when I came to America, well, I wasn't American. And so I struggled a lot with my identity. And sometimes I feel othered, but I've learned that otherness is actually a superpower, because I'm able to see things dually. I'm able to see things differently. I'm always able to take a step back and be able to kind of see things from a larger or higher viewpoint, to be able to inform or act, which is probably why I'm really good at what I did as a marketer. And that's essentially my upbringing. What I didn't realize at the time was that in the coming up in Africa, there were certain things or certain traits that I brought into relationships, into even my work relationships, about just proving my value, proving my worth. And I struggled with that. Mainly because I didn't think that I was good enough, because, well, why did she send me to live in Africa? Wasn't I good enough for her to stay, And so in the proving my value, in the proving my worth, that essentially is a pattern. It's a learned behavior. It's a pattern that led me into all kinds of poor choices and decisions, if I'm honest.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
And I was listening to your intro episode where you shared that story, and I had no idea. I kind of had the reverse situation.
Really?
I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. My parents are also divorced, an amicable separation, but they divorced when I was very young. So we lived with my mom, my sister, and I. Then at the age of 11, my dad decided to bring us to the United States. Obviously agreed upon between them, but as little girls, we didn't know what was happening. We were moved to another country, learn a different language, New York City of all places.
Of all places.
Very overwhelming. I was placed in a class in the sixth grade where I couldn't speak the language. I didn't know English. I could barely say the ABCs, and my self-worth was also questioned. Am I good enough? I had an accent, and I have multiple accents. I have the New York accent, Dominican accent, the Spanish accent, and you always are in this constant struggle to prove that you're Dominican enough or American enough. You're never enough, right? Just enough, period. But also the sense of abandonment from parenting, even though I was very close to my mother and my dad, not being close to my mom for such a long time at that pivotal age of 11.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge, and it does get you into these situations that we'll get into. But I love hearing that, and I thought so many people may be going through the same, especially, children of immigrants that are here in the United States that have to constantly navigate those tough decisions, and they don't necessarily get the context a lot of the times.
Context, the language. I think being in therapy, I was able to unpack some of that and actually put language and words to that feeling. And I think it's a numbing. It's a numbing, but there's a knowing that something is off within you. But if you don't have the language, and when you're young, you don't have the language yet to kind of articulate what some of those feelings are. And they're big feelings to process. You kind of just push it down and not realizing that is harmful in a sense, and also not realizing that is kind of how you get into some of the situations you end up in work, in romantic relationships, in friendships as well, because there's a level of people pleasing that I don't know if you struggle with that. And what I would never say to another person, I'm a people pleaser. Like, even if you kind of were meet me, you would say like, oh, she commands a room. And to an extent I do, but with the people pleasing came with the proving and the pleasing and the validation of my worth. Which I struggle with for a very long time, in understanding that my value is not based on what someone says or gives or to me. My value is in who I am and whose I am, right? And so for me, that has been a long journey. And I'm still on that journey, but I'm now able to understand how I got here. And I'm thankful actually for that. I don't know if you feel the same, because I wouldn't be so resilient. You can drop me wherever, I will figure it out because of that exact, I guess, upbringing, right? And so I don't change it or question it. I'm now understanding more so who I am and what the fabric of my being really is.
And getting to the root of that feeling that you can't identify through therapy is really powerful, because for me, in my case, just understanding the context of why I felt that little abandonment, it wasn't then I'm like, oh, it wasn't abandonment, it was just something that needed to happen so that I could have a better life and I could have more opportunities. And I could discover this whole world that I've been able to discover. So I just love how you mapped out that journey, that beautiful journey, because it is beautiful if you think about it. It's like painful, but then you learn so much from it that look at where you are now.
And I would say also, so there's a level of forgiving that I had to do. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm able to now understand my mom's journey, and I'm sure it was a tough decision sending your daughter, and I'm the first, I'm the eldest, to live with someone. There was a heartbreak that happened for her as well, but I definitely felt a level of I'm still working through that language. Yes, abandonment, but I didn't quite understand, well, why couldn't you just, that just is also a qualifier. Why wasn't I good enough for you to keep me with you? And we had to have a conversation about it. It was a hard conversation because, they are the ones, they know all, right? And so I think it was I needed to have that conversation with her just to let her know, I don't even want to say my side of things, but just what the things I had to face and I had to unpack and understand, especially now as I'm raising my own daughter. So I see kind of parallel stories in a sense, but I'm now more mindful of how my choices impact her and how that will then impact her in her relationships as well. So kind of full circle.
That's beautiful. And in our communities, Black and Brown communities, therapy is not something that people seek out as easily. It takes time. It took me years to finally say, you know what, I need therapy. And same for you, but that therapy and the forgiveness and the conversation is so powerful, and important. Definitely people should seek out these type of resources as they're navigating similar situations.
Absolutely.
So Liv, another part of you that I love and admire is your career as a marketer, award-winning. You're the producer for one of my most favorite advertising creative, which is The Talk by Procter & Gamble.
My goodness, you're taking us back. Yes.
For people that have not watched The Talk, tell us about that, and tell us about that career journey, right? When you produce this piece of creative, you are at the height of your career, of all the recognition, the awards were, coming in, but you're also going through a very difficult situation in your life with your family, and you kind of had to pull back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about that. But I love The Talk.
Oh, you love The Talk. Everyone loves it. Well, not everybody loved The Talk at the time. I think everyone now.
People were talking.
We got people talking. That was the intent. I will say that I worked at an agency that was responsible for the communications strategy for the Talk, coupled with our client partners and our agency partners well. So I'm not the sole producer by any means. But at the height of what was taking place in America was, I want to say Obama was leaving the administration. We had a new president in. You started to kind of sense kind of civil unrest taking place. America didn't quite know what was happening. Trayvon Martin had just been murdered, and one of our clients wanted to do something about it, but not quite sure what it was. It just so happened that we represented the My Black is Beautiful platform, which was owned by Procter & Gamble. And at that time, it was their 10-year anniversary, and we thought, what an interesting way to kind of celebrate that. And My Black is Beautiful was around empowering women who were Black, and was an online community where we were championing them and championing their stories. And we found that we had to shift strategically to really focus on what a Black woman will be worrying about and focused on in that time. And it was the safety of her kids and the safety of how they were portrayed in America. And so the insight for the talk was really around the conversation that's being had with parents with their Black kids. And when you say conversation, you instantly think about the birds and the bees, but this conversation is about what to do when you, TBD, being Black in America is a real thing. When you get stopped by the police, how to act, so it was really about the talk and the fact that from decades from when we were freed as slaves till now, that conversation is still being had. And so the idea around it was to shine a light that this conversation is happening so that we can end the conversation happening. And so I think as a creative, you never go into any creative thinking it was going to win an award. That, of course, was not the intent. It definitely sparked a dialogue. I mean, what's a soap company doing talking about bias, right? That's essentially the stand. But P&G and the My Black is Beautiful platform wanted to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we believe. This is our values. This is what we believe. All men are created equal. And it was not okay with what was happening in America. And so that was the talk. And it did so well. I want to say it won every award that we entered from a marketing perspective, and won an Emmy, won a Grand Prix. And I was out talking about it. I was one of the spokespeople for the campaign. But at the height of that, something else was happening in my household. My son was battling mental health illnesses. And I would always say family is important, but my actions were incongruent. I was always away. I was on a stage. I was on a trip. And so there was imbalance happening, and I missed it. And I recognize now, and I've forgiven myself for missing it, but at the height of my career, my household was suffering, and I had to take a beat and take a pause and actually go on leave to handle and take care of my son in a way. And that was a really tough situation to be in, because he was battling with serious anxiety and serious depression. And in that kind of slow moment, I started to also see that, I'm not happy in my relationship. I'm not happy in what was happening at home. And it was a signal to go deeper.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so powerful, so much to unpack. As I mentioned, this is I've been in multicultural marketing for 22 years. And there's one thing that I love most about that job, that career, is when I see that type of work. When I see purposeful work that is really used to uplift communities and to educate and to inform. For Latinos, we probably don't have those kinds of conversations as much as we should. And so this creative really served as an example of how we need to be preparing our children. I'm not a mother, but my sister has 2 young Black boys. My brother just has a 3-year-old. And I always think about them. And I always think about, knowing all the things that we know, these conversations are very necessary. So it was very impactful to see this and to know that still today, we're back at it again, and we're here again. So, that creative is so powerful. And, for you to be behind that movement, because it truly was a movement. It is a movement. And to see your career rising, and probably what you always wanted, right? Which was to see that moment. And just have to make that tough decision to, okay, now I have to step away. Because my family is more important. My family needs my attention. And women are constantly having to make those tough decisions, right? We talk about the resilience of women and how it really is a lot of the times up to the woman to say, I'm going to pause my ambitions, my career, my goals, because other people need me. It's like that caretaker in us that oftentimes, that's what we need. We do what we need to do, right?
Yeah, you do. I don't know if I would say it was tough. I knew my job. I had one job, and it's to raise these 2 kids to be healthy, emotional beings in this country. So once I recognized, oh, this is an issue, I knew my priorities needed to shift. But I knew the timing. I knew that, eventually I'll always get another opportunity because, I'm just that good.
Of course.
Humble brag. But I recognized that if I didn't get this moment right, well, the cost is, well, my son would die in a sense, right? Yeah. So it was an easy decision. What I also was really pleasantly surprised at is the level of understanding that came with that, and the outreach and the pouring and the support in taking that leave, and being nervous that, am I going to have a job if I come back? And how long is leave really? And the behind my mind is kind of racing there, but it didn't even matter because I knew what was important. And I say all the time when I mentor young ladies about, wanting to have it all, I believe you can have it all, just not at the same time. Yeah. And once you have that level of understanding and context, decisions get to be a little easier because then you're like, you know what? What's for me? I'm a firm believer. What's for me is for me. And the timing has to align. And so I kind of leaned into that. And for me, it was impactful because not only was I not necessarily paying attention to my son, I also had a young daughter who was kind of seeing how to be. And I also was neglecting that too. So yeah.
I love that. And, a lot of women who are, striving to build that career, sometimes it's really hard to say, I can't step away because I'm going to miss out on opportunities. It's a common thing that we think, right?
Absolutely.
But being so grounded in yourself and your priorities and your family is your main priority, it's so important for all of us to always know, okay, our careers are cool and fun, and obviously they provide our living, but ultimately there are more important things in life that we can't stop paying attention to. Yeah, so I commend you for that, and your son is in much better place.
He's thriving. He's going
to go to college.
A junior. Yeah. Yes, he's a junior in high school. We're looking at colleges. I don't understand what's happening. I still feel contractions. What's going on?
Time flies.
It really does. It really does. But he's thriving. He's really good.
That's beautiful. Really good. I'm really glad to hear.
Yeah.
And, as you look at your career, and, you talked about this moment in your life was one of the hardest. You looked at your home life and you were not necessarily happy with what was happening in your relationship. And so that led you to a separation, a divorce, which then led you to Liv'd Stories, the podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Ooh. When you tell a story and you're looking back, hindsight's so 2020. This is sounding cute, but this is very, very messy. It took a long time. And so I will first say that I had no business getting married. Walking down the aisle, I'm terrified. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, this is normal. This is just, butterflies or, cold feet. But what I didn't realize and recognize was happening was a knowing of myself. There was an internal guttural thing that was happening when I was walking down the aisle, and I knew this may not be the right decision, but I'm here now. I wasn't brave enough to say, let's stop. Yeah. Right? I wasn't brave enough to say, I don't think I know myself. I had no idea what a wife needed to be. I just was like, I was looking for a savior, transparently, to help me out of college debt or to help me live life. I'm just keeping it a buck. Like, I really thought happily ever after was like, there's happily ever after, but like the fairy tale kind. Yeah. Like I was Delulu in a sense of like what I thought this marriage was going to be. That's what I mean by it was like, girl, you're not ready, but what are you doing? Like,
you were 26,
doing?
Right?
I was 25. So
Lord.
And isn't there a study that says your brain isn't really formed until you're 25. So I'm a newborn in these New York streets walking down the aisle like, girl, what you doing? Anyway, so I recognized, okay, well, maybe it's cold feet. You don't know that in the present that's what's happening. And so in the pausing in dealing with my son, I also had to have a reconciliation of what I expected in a marriage, which was way off, and what was actually happening in the marriage. And so I knew we needed to go to work. And so we did the things, youth therapy and all the things. But in the end, it wasn't the right fit. We were more friends, I would say, and not husband and wife in a way, in an intimate way that you would expect husband and wife to be. But what do? I just had my son. I had my son. I just had my daughter. It was a pause, but it was a recognition of I have to do something about it. But the doing something about it was more so I'll therapy it out, but the therapy wasn't working. And then once I realized, the therapy wasn't working and I had to end it, that's when the battle began. I recognized that I had to break my own heart. I recognized in the breaking of my own heart, I had to choose myself, which felt selfish, if I'm honest. It felt like I was breaking up a perfect home because there was nothing really wrong. We never fought. We were friends. We were buddies. But I wasn't fulfilled, right? The things that I knew I needed in a relationship I wasn't getting. Let's be so for real. I never shared that with him, or I never shared that out early. I don't even think I knew at the time too. And so there's a lot of realizing that of myself and being honest with myself that this guy was in an unfair situation. And I talk a lot about your nervous system knowing. I just felt this tightness in my chest. It was always there. I thought something was wrong with me. I went to doctors, but after kind of like going through, you fill out the normal forms. One of the questions were, are you depressed? I'm not depressed. She's like, you should probably go see a therapist because it's sounding like some of the things that you're feeling may be tied to some anxiety and depression. Girl, the devil's a liar. You're quick to like, what are you talking about? What? You don't know me. And so looking for a therapist and filling out all the forms, it turned out because I was so in my mind in trying to solve this life thing, and I'm a solver in marketing world to speak, I couldn't solve this problem of uncoupling or ending a marriage. And I couldn't figure out why, because if you meet me, I'm such a force that you'd be like, oh, divorce easy. No, I had 2 young children. We had just got the house. And so there's a lot that goes into even saying I want a divorce. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, maybe we go through therapy and maybe we figure some things out. But in the end, I had to make the tough choice in saying and having that conversation. And it wasn't easy and it was hard. And it took multiple, I would say, phases. First, you yourself have to recognize like, oh, there's no saving this. And then how do you get out? How do you find it? And so for me, I felt isolation. I felt confused. I felt embarrassed. There was shame there. I also didn't have, it's not like I had a gang of divorced friends who I could go to as well. Everyone was married and everyone looked happy. So I didn't really, they tell you, don't tell anyone what's happening in your house for fear of judgment. So I was just in this place of just, it was just a cycle of things. And the depression was because I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't solve it in my own mind. And I went to therapy and the lady was like, you're such a force. What's the problem? And that's when she started to unpack some abandonment issues, some people pleasing, all of those little childhood things that were locked up in my psyche that I brought into the marriage and the relationship. And in unpacking that, I realized, oh, there's some deep inner work that I have to do. And in that process, and the realization also too, that if I can help my son out of his situation, which was a really, really hard situation, well, I can do another really hard thing. And I think I needed that to be a catalyst to help me unpack and get to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm filing for divorce. And I'm going to do it in a way that's amicable and non-humiliating, but also to realizing that I actually can do it.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of how I got to that realization. But in the process of figuring things out, called lawyers, and there's no you type up Google. What do you Google?
There's a bunch of resources how to get married and like all the things to do. But when it comes to divorce, which is something that so many people go through, it's not as easy to find. And especially through the lens of a Black woman, right? Exactly. And those type of resources.
Exactly. And so I felt alone. I felt, and I didn't know who to trust as it relates to the advice to glean. I would say one lawyer was like, well, ma'am, because they ask you the same kinds of questions. And I live in New Jersey. And so you look at the New Jersey law. And he said to me, well, it's cheaper to keep him.
Oh, wow. Just like that.
And I literally closed the binder, and I'm an old school note-taking person. I closed my divorce binder. I was like, I guess that's a wrap. And I closed it for, I would say, another 2-3 years.
Wow.
And so I was just stuck.
3 years?
I mean, we were married for 14. I would say I knew year 5, but I had, year 5, year 6, year 7, I had young kids. And so the focus became the business of the household and the business of the kids. And you just tuck away those feelings. You sweep it under the rug. You don't really talk about it.
Wow.
And so that's what I did until the pressure in my chest started just become unbearable, that I was like, no, I have to figure out a solution, or I felt like I was going to die. I'm dramatic, but that's essentially what was a catalyst in me seeking divorce and catalyst. And while we were looking through and learning, and in my therapy session is when my therapist said, well, have you considered mediation? And so I went the mediation route because it's less evasive. It's amicable in the sense of it's done not in a court system. And in that process is when I learned that I would, based on the law, would be responsible for spousal support, which was a shock. And in my pissed state, I decided I was going to do something about it. And the first incubator for Liv'd was me looking to create a fund for women who are similar to me, who are in a state of like having to do spousal support. I'm like, you can come borrow from me so you can take care of that, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially how Liv'd got started, because I was really looking for a space of commonality.
Yeah.
I will say that once I started opening up and sharing what I was going through, I found so many women who'd either gone through the same or who were experiencing the same. And I'll never forget, a good friend of mine, Stacy, said, you know what, when I was venting and whining and being bitter about the spousal support, she said, pay him, you'll always make more. And if I didn't have that piece of advice, I probably will still be in the court system fighting the divorce. Now, we've been divorced for some time. But that was essentially the insight that led me to the birthing of the Liv'd platform and the Lived Stories podcast, because I thought, if there's just one seed that I can plant for a woman who's in a situation and help them to their next, well, that's impact. And I would have done what I felt was needed, I wished I had in my own divorce journey.
I love that. And wow, thank you for sharing that journey, which started with so many questions that you had and not being able to find those answers. And you probably were torturing yourself about these feelings and about this decision that you had to make in your life to be where you are now. And a lot of women are suffering in silence because in our communities, it's very shameful. And,
so shameful.
families and friends and society is all telling you, fight harder, stay, bear it, be in pain. Yes. Our grandparents went through so much more than we did, and they're like, oh, that's nothing. So you feel that pressure, right, to kind of stay in the relationship and do all the things that you have to do, which is obviously what you went through. Yeah. But imagine if you had not gone through therapy and uncovered all of these things that maybe people pleasing would have kept you in that marriage for 20 more years.
I probably will still be married, if I'm honest.
Imagine.
Yeah.
So the power of therapy, the power of looking for resources, the power of building the community that you've built.
The power of community.
And your podcast covers so many topics from, how to deal with grief of divorce, how to learn about mediation, to understand the finances behind it. Like you really are putting together a masterclass of how can women prepare themselves for these changes in their lives, and you find amazing speakers and professionals that can help guide the decision and the process. Talk to us about that, and obviously because you get a lot of stories from women reaching out to you.
So when I started Liv'd Story, and Liv'd Stories is the podcast, the platform it's Liv'd, and you can find me, livd.co is our website. I actually was my first consumer. So it would, in marketing, you go through the consumer journey. I thought if I could just find a place that was a one-stop shop that covered it all, that would have been so helpful for me. And so that's what I set out to do. At first I said, you know what, let's get stories of women who've gone through the divorce. And so I interviewed my friends who helped me in my journey in divorce and separation. And through that, I started to kind of get other conversation ideas. But the vision had always been creating a resource hub, and divorce happens to the whole woman. So Liv'd has, with a $19 membership, you have access to Resource Hub. And in the Resource Hub, you get the law information across all 50 states. And it's fluid, and we're building therapists across the 50 states, mental health professionals. We have app recommendations. We have finance recommendations. We have a section called My Favorite Black Girl Magic, where it's like a splattering of other Black women who are doing amazing things to help. If you need some jewelry, well, a friend of mine is a jewelry designer. You can go and peruse her offerings, right? And so the Resource Hub is meant to be that first place to go to get vetted information and trusted information when looking for lawyers. In addition to that, within the website, you also have access to biweekly Zooms. We're getting ready to start that in the new year once we get a community. We have a private WhatsApp group, because sometimes your friends are sleeping, or sometimes your friends are not available, and some of your friends are not necessarily individuals who've gone through the divorce process. So that WhatsApp group is really meant to be like, hey, my lawyer told me this, or hey, this is what's happening. You will have someone who could say, yeah, I remember when that happened, do this, right? Again, not meant to be the one-stop shop, or we are not experts, but we have lived experience, which is why the name is Liv'd, because we have lived experience in this separation and divorce platform journey that I think is needed. In the website as well, there's what's called Liv'd After Dark, because sometimes healing happens in the midnight hour. For me, when I realized that I was going to make the tough decision of separating, I realized it on 7th Avenue and 27th, and I had a mental breakdown, full-on cry session as I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Glennon Doyle's podcast, and she had just released her book. And in her book, she said, there's a knowing that comes over you, and I knew. And I had a meltdown right there. Wish I'd have had a podcast or a WhatsApp group to kind of send a quick message to. So everything that we're offering is really meant from a place of what I wish I had in my journey, but it also is for a person who's not necessarily married. There are many situations that I'm hearing from women who either they're living with a significant other, or they have children with a significant other, and now they feel stuck in a state that this is also a place for them as well. So Liv Podcast is in season 2, and that's available wherever you listen to your podcast. Behind the membership is a resource hub, the WhatsApp group, the Zoom meetings, and also to the Liv'd After Dark podcast. And it's growing. It's emotional to receive the responses, and I'm getting paragraphs of things. But the intention is not to grow fast, because I want to make sure that we're being intentional. Want to make sure that the things that we're doing for women in need make sense as well, and that it's authentic. And so we launched, this in May, and I can't believe that this is actually out in the world. My baby's birthed, and it's an exciting time, but I'm also really excited about the women it's going to help. And, sharing the story and sharing my story, which is interesting because I never thought that I'd be the voice. Isn't that weird? It's named after you. Like, what are you? in my mind, listener / viewer, I just thought I'll just launch it. I'll just be behind the scenes because that's what my real job.
You're the story.
I am the story, and someone had to say that. People want to hear your story, and people want to connect with you. And so, I'm doing that now, kind of going to communities, because I also recognize that divorce is a piece of a woman, not the whole story, not the whole woman. And so going to other established organizations and community and letting women know, hey, if this is a situation that you're in, and then we're here as a resource for you. Yeah.
I love it. And I just love to see how you've been able to grow intentionally into so many different areas. And again, I feel like through these type of painful decisions in life, you need to hear other people who are going through the same thing, because sometimes you think you're just by yourself.
Absolutely.
I remember, I shared this with you, but I had a hysterectomy last year, and like you, I went looking for information. I went looking for stories of women who had gone through the same thing. Yeah. I thought, am I old? Like, does this happen to young women? I mean, I was 42 at the time. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm so confused. I was not ready for something like this to happen in my life. Yeah. A major thing. And I couldn't find Latinas or Black women talking openly about it. Yes. And I'm like, what a shame that I can't find this information. And I'm just like, I was in this little bubble of like pain and not knowing what to do or where to go. And I'm like, I need to create a podcast about this. And obviously the idea for Mujeres Create has evolved from just that situation, because I want to learn more about women and what we go through. And I want to share those stories because we're going through a lot.
So much.
And oftentimes alone, because our families don't like talking about it. When I had my hysterectomy, I didn't know that a lot of my tias had gone through the same thing.
Oh, wow.
A lot of women near me, friends, mothers of friends of mine, had gone through the same thing. And I'm like, no one ever told me about this. I had like 4 tias that had gone through the same thing. And I had no one talked about it. I had this is clearly in our family's lineage. So, our families don't talk about these things. Our friends don't often talk about these topics. So I love that you're kind of taking it upon yourself to talk openly about divorce and about the things that women can do. And I'm doing the same thing with Mujeres Create and just sharing my story because you really are uplifting someone and you don't know who, like you said,
I have no
a glimmer
idea.
Of hope.
Just the one thing you want to hear to get you through your next, and whatever your next is. Right. Surviving the day, taking the step to call the lawyer, whatever that is for an individual, you want to be guides to help them along. I think also to what's under attack, I think in the growing nation of social, et cetera, is isolation. I think there is an attack on community that if you think about even the economy is thriving based on Netflix and chill. Not saying anything is wrong with Netflix, right? But Instacart or DoorDash, things that is coming to isolation. It's the economy is set up for to keep you isolated. Yeah. So the resistance is community. But community is now under attack. And then Black and brown community, forget about it. We're not going to go into that, what's happening in America. But I think it's very interesting that you brought that up, that no one is talking about it because you feel like you're alone. But once you start sharing your story, isn't it crazy how many women start opening up and learning about their situation? It's like, oh my goodness, what? Why you ain't saying that? Why you ain't saying that, girl?
I know. It's crazy. And, now in my case, hysterectomy and, this conversation around women's health is now coming up more to the surface. Absolutely. The conversation around perimenopause and menopause and these topics that,
such
a lot of taboo.
But now,
and now I'm happy to see those conversations happening. Yeah. But we're still like holding back and like keeping quiet and keeping it like under wraps, right? Yeah. We need to just speak up and like talk about the things that are causing us pain and the things that are keeping us small. One of the things that I love about your podcast specifically, and I think the last episode was about mediation, one of the most recent episodes, is that you really are advocating for amicable separation, especially when there's children involved. Tell us about that, because I feel like when it comes to divorce, a lot of people have this worry that it's going to go nasty. It's going to go the wrong way. It's going to just wipe you out of all of your money. Like, talk to us about that side that more people should think about, especially when there's children involved. The amicable route, the mediation route.
Yeah. And I got to keep it a buck, because it's hard to go into any separation without a level of self-preservation, right? So one person is like, I'm going to preserve self, I'm already hurt, and another person is doing the same, right? And for me, I had to establish really early on that my North Star was to do whatever I can to ensure that we as a unit can still be a unit, even though mommy and daddy are separating. And so I always had that in the back of my mind. And my kids were young at the time too, young enough to know that, like, oh, daddy's no longer living here, but not having the language or the understanding to understand why. And so for me, I just knew that was going to be my North Star. And since I started sharing my story with other women, I heard stories that were scary about how long the process took, how much money it took. And so
it could be frightening for a lot of people.
Oh, it could go, from a timing perspective, litigation can go from 2 to 3 years, where mediation is still tough. It's still emotional. It's still, you still have to uncouple and separate. But at least it's done in a human way, and you control the framework. You decide how you want to separate, and it's not based on, the judge or based on two crazy lawyers who are making money off of ensuring that it continues to be.
It's in their interest to keep this going for as long as possible.
So what's important is understanding, based on where you live, the law in that state. And based on the law in the state, then you can figure out, the big pieces of it. And that's what mediation helps you do. They already know the law. They now help the parties negotiate. And in any negotiation, there's things you give and there's things you take. That's what negotiation is. And the mediator is unbiased. And so the funny thing is, actually, just what I asked the mediator, I was like, how are you remaining unbiased, honestly? Well, there are courses. And so one of the things that the mediator recommended is you want to make sure that you're asking your mediator, what credits did you take and what courses, what's your background, to be able to understand, is this the right person for me? But my decision to choose mediation was really because I did not want my kids to see a contentious split. I knew that, we still have to co-parent, no matter how we feel about the marriage. And I said that we were always friends. We were always partners, and we're about our kids. And so I had to take that level of understanding and awareness into the divorce process. And some people don't, and it hurts, you hear stories and it hurts the kids in the end. And then there's issues there too. And I saw the other way. I have many friends who had just poor divorces. I definitely knew I didn't want that. And transparently, I had to make some choices that I say petty Liv, like petty Liv, would have been like, girl, what you doing, But I knew the greater good was, okay, if I do this, then at least once we're finished, it'll be a great opportunity for us to co-parent well. And that was the end. That was the end goal for me, was making sure the kids saw two whole parents.
I love that. Yeah. Yes, and I commend you for obviously looking at the bigger picture and preserving your children's wellness and the long-term effect on, that a divorce separation can have on children. So
it wasn't easy.
Congratulations for
you.
Doing that and for pushing through.
Yes. I mean, Petty Liv definitely had tantrums. She had tantrums.
Where is Liv? Are you 5 years post-divorce?
5 years post-divorce.
Where are you?
Right. So it's so funny, and the timing is literally my ex-husband left the house, I would say that week before shutdown.
Wow.
So he had his own place. So it was a blessing.
Imagine
we didn't know.
Shutdown with your...
I mean, child, and in a different kind of...
God loves you.
God, in fact, loves. I'm a favorite.
We're both
we're child of... But I think about that in the timing.
Yeah.
So we had the opportunity to kind of create new lives in a sense of the shutdown, which was a blessing when I didn't know at the time. And I got an opportunity to kind of redesign the home and redesign my life based on who I knew myself to be as well. And it was a rebirth. It was a rebirth of lovely things, but it was also some rude awakenings to some of my patterns. I
love your self-awareness is crazy.
Oh my child.
I love it.
She's a lot. She's a lot. I talk about myself in the third person, but there were some things that I had to go work through in therapy to unpack the choices that led me to the marriage. I shared that I was looking for a savior, but why was that, right? Where like, girl, you are your own superhero, right? And so in that journey of discovery and self-awareness, I can say that I know myself, and I'm knowing of like asking myself why. Well, why is that bothering me? Why is that sticking out, right? Knowing myself enough to ask those questions and then going on a journey to figure out the answer. And I'm
I love it.
Progress, not perfection, is the saying. And so here I am progressing. I made it a verb. I'm progressing.
I love it.
Yes.
So Liv, I mean, I see it as like this story arc of, how does the story arc start? Like happy, and then like treacherous territory, and now you're coming back to yourself, and you've been there, you've been thriving with so many different entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah.
What is next for Liv'd? And we talked about how you're growing in so many different areas, but what is the long-term vision? Can you share a little bit about that? Are you ready for?
Yes. Let's get in there. So the long-term vision is to listen, to really program for what women need. And part of that, I believe, is in legislation. And so working with state legislators to look at the law, look at some of the gaps that consist with how it was written then and what the realities are now. I would say in that the components around the Black and brown disparities. I mean, Black women are commanding more in salary. Black women are starting businesses, and so the income level is rising, but we're not protected. So that's one aspect that I want to work towards, is creating some legislation to protect Black and brown women. The second piece that I want to focus on is creating housing, but not like housing that like the housing, right? But more so transitional homes. Right now I'm calling it Live Nests, where if you're right, a nest is like oh my God, we're such marketers. Live Nest. Child, it's gonna change. I don't know. But I do think, spouse says, I want a divorce, get out of my house. What do you do? You could have friends and family go for a while, but that's not sustaining. So I do want to create kind of transitional spaces that is curated for the woman. You have Instacart delivering your groceries. You have guest rooms for your kids. You have, laundry. By really thinking about what that could look like. And so that is a huge undertaking. I'm sure things already exist within the region, but that is really the other piece of the vision, is to really create a place where women can come who need the help. I mean, funding, I need groceries. I have no money, being able to provide that level of funding for them as well. So those are kind of three big projects.
That's huge.
I'm sweating thinking about it. So that's a good sign. That means it's big enough, right?
We need funding. Funding.
But right now, I would say, the grassroots efforts and being at the small regional events and learning from women and really listening for what's not happening or the gaps that exist, then be able to plug in those gaps and plugging some solutions that I think is going to be helpful for women who face this. Nobody gets married and thinks about divorce, right? So that's kind of what's in the horizon.
I love it. And I love that at the core of everything you're doing is helping women. Helping women inform themselves, empower themselves, prepare themselves. And your big vision is all about protecting, supporting women. So I love all of this for you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so thankful for you coming to the city to record this podcast.
It was an adventure.
I've been really thinking about collaborating with you for such a long time, and I'm a huge fan, and congratulations on everything that you're doing.
Thank
Mujeres, go and listen to Liv's podcast. Go subscribe to her service for her resource hub for women who are managing these separation situations. Go support her, and let's find her some funding for this big vision. Mujeres create. Let's create opportunities.
Yes, activate. Mujeres create, activate. There you go. There's your call to action. So it's to find me. So the website, the resource hub is livd.co. On social, we're Liv'd Stories, so LIVD Stories, across all the places. And for the podcast, you can listen to it anywhere. It's Liv'd Stories is the name of the podcast.
I love it.
And you can connect with me, Liv Lewis. I laugh, I joke around all the time, like I've been in Instagram for such a long time that it's just my name. It's not anything sexy, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's Liv Lewis. That's how long I've been on
Liv is
Instagram.
A great name.
You know what?
And Lewis, come on, Liv Lewis.
Well, that's my married name, and so I was like, well, I earned that.
This podcast sounds like a show that needs to happen. I know there are some divorce shows out there.
There's some divorce shows.
There's like a different level of empowerment. And maybe that could be the marketer route. Like there's so many. Like
it's an evolution. I'm evolving, and in this journey, and we talk about creating. You can evolve. You can create. And when you're going through a trial or going through a trauma, I think you're not thinking about the future. You're not thinking about how this is going to impact you. But I think for a woman who's listening or watching and they're in a tough spot, just think about the outcome of what you take, or the outcome of what you're going through may potentially help someone else in a similar situation. Maybe that could be a little glimmer of hope for someone who's going through a trial and a trauma. I didn't know that in the divorce, Liv was going to get birth, but here's my trauma turned into triumph, I would say.
I love
turned
it.
To a story. So hopefully that helps someone else who's in a tough spot.
Congratulations. You made it, Liv. You made it.
Your energy is infectious. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm out of it, but it's who knows what's
to come. It's like a little roller coaster.
And that's life.
That's life. Thank you so much, Liv.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for creating this space. It really means so much.
And I wish you all the best. And we're gonna collaborate.
Yes.
In so many ways.
I can't wait.
We're gonna collaborate.
It's gonna be good. It's meant to be.
Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, mujeres. Woo, I love it.
Yay! Oh wow, look at that. You were tracking, right?
A little bit.
Was that an hour? That was an hour?
Yeah, an hour.
Gosh.
And roughly an hour.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Oh my God,
Is there anything else that you want to? We could. Was that good?
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Okay,
I love the journey of the conversation because as I asked the questions, but then you took it. Your final parts were like weaving into the next part naturally. So it was
maybe
perfect.
That was intentional. Maybe
I know you are.
Maybe
you are a marketer.
I am a marketer after all. Can't trust us.
Maybe.
It's always a ploy.
I love it.
Yeah.